This week on the Aviators, I go to the middle of nowhere and find an airplane that does really short takeoffs. We look at the U.S. Navy Legacy flight. And Curtis hurdles 50 feet above the ground at 200 knots as we learn how to test an ILS.
Aviators.
Having an airplane and a license to fly can give you a great deal of freedom. However, airplanes don't magically get into the air, and you really can't stay up there forever. This generally means that you need somewhere with a couple of thousand feet of asphalt to take off and land from, which would usually be called an airport. Unless you have a short takeoff or landing, or STOL aircraft. Then you might only need a few hundred feet of ground to work with. And if your airplane is on skis or floats, well then all of a sudden, you don't need an airport at all.
Your takeoff procedure happens so fast that it's stick back, full flaps, they trim it nose high, stick back, full throttle, and go 1, 2, 3, and I'm airborne.
Richard Lauzon is the owner-operator of a hunting and fishing lodge in Quebec that quite frankly is in the middle of nowhere. 60 miles to the closest human being, the only practical way to get in and out is by airplane. But there's no runway or grass strip up here, so he needs an airplane with floats in the summer and skis in the winter. For this, he chose the Zenith STOL CH-801. So you're in this spot and you're saying, you know what, I need an aircraft. The number one mission for you was, I gotta have short takeoff and landing.
Yeah.
And that pointed you right to Zenith?
I have been doing research for a long time. This is my third plane, and I wanted to get a good all-around bush plane, and I've always had tube and fabrics, and in the winter when you get iced up and you try to get the ice off, you damage your fabric, and it takes, winter's hard on tube and fabric. But so I wanted to go all metal. It was locally in Midland, Ontario, which is just like a 5-hour drive once you're out of the bush from here. So I said, what the heck, I'll try the local boys, and I bought their kit, and I had a friend of mine put it together for me.
Let's talk about the landing component. I mean, 40 or 50 feet for the takeoff, which was, it blew me away. Nothing like I've ever experienced before. But from a landing perspective, how much space are you generally looking for when you're in the air and you're looking for a place to land? What's ideal for you?
300, 400 feet.
Now, short takeoff and landing can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. One generally accepted definition is the ability to clear a 50-foot obstacle within 1,500 feet of takeoff or landing. To accomplish this, STOL aircraft usually share some common characteristics, including a lot of thrust and great big straight wings that generate a lot of lift. In addition, many STOL aircraft like the Zenith will also have leading-edge slats and large flaps.
What the slats do is at slow speeds, with a really high angle of attack, you get an extra airflow going over the wing.
Curtis Fogel is a Zenith authorized builder who built Richard's 801.
What Zenith has done is come up with a good compromise position to give it excellent lift at slow speeds, takeoff and landing, with a high angle of attack. So you can visualize at a high angle of attack, the slat would be at that position to allow the air to get underneath it. But in cruise, if your wing flattens out, and now the slat becomes part of the wing.
The 801 also uses flaperons, a combination of the ailerons and the flaps, as opposed to the two being separate. As some of you may recall, the Antonov AN-2 also uses flaperons and is also an excellent STOL aircraft, albeit much bigger than the Zenith. But one thing both aircraft have in common is the ability to carry a large payload for their size.
One of the things that I've been amazed by is the amount of space you have behind those two front seats. So this particular one is an 801. It's got an extra 2 seats back there, and you can load it. It's pretty much, if you can get it in, it'll carry it. So, you know, Richard has put, we don't know how many pounds, but it's, you know, you put it as much as you can in there and it'll go.
And it doesn't seem to matter if I'm gross weight. It doesn't matter if I'm full weight or light. I'm still up in 40, 50, 60 feet. And actually, the more weight I put in the back, the quicker I'm getting airborne, which is just mind-boggling compared to most other aircraft.
The 801 will cruise along at 105 miles an hour. That's definitely not the fastest aircraft out there, but if you're like Richard and most of your flying is done at an altitude of 200 or 300 feet, it can seem a lot faster. They generally say that altitude is safety, but you don't feel that flying at 200 or 300 feet above is unsafe by any means.
No, I don't feel unsafe at all. Like, because I'm in a very reliable plane, and like I can put that thing in. If I can get it in, I can get it out. These things take off like a lonesome angel, and for me, I don't worry about it because I can land this thing anywhere, you know. And if something's going to happen, it just doesn't die right there. You know, you might sputter or something. You got a little bit of a warning, and there's lakes everywhere here. There's a landing strip everywhere for me, so I don't really worry about that. It's just an overall feeling like I see the trees. If there's moose, I get to see the moose. You know, if I'm up at 5,000 feet, I ain't going to see a moose. I'm going to see nothing. You know, and you don't even think you're moving when you go up. The lower you go, the faster you see. You think you're moving, and these things don't go too fast, so it gives you a bit of a speed rush if you're just a little bit lower you are.
I can tell you that I really enjoyed my time flying around in the Zenith with Richard. And one thing's for sure, I've never been in an aircraft that takes off or lands any quicker than the 801. I just wish that it was a little bit warmer.
You gotta be kidding me! Oh my God!
Among the most popular acts at air shows are the U.S. Air Force Heritage Flight or the U.S. Navy Legacy Flight, where top-of-the-line modern aircraft take flight with retired warbirds now in civilian hands. For the Navy, this means former carrier-based attack aircraft or trainers flying in formation with the FA-18 Super Hornet.
So our mission is to demonstrate the long, rich history of naval aviation, past and present, to show past aircraft flying in formation with current Navy aircraft.
Steve Keurig is a former Air Force F-15 pilot who now flies T-2 Buckeyes as part of the Legacy Flight program.
T-2 is a twin-engine jet built by Rockwell International, which was then purchased by North American Aircraft Company. So it's kind of a little bit of both. This is a T-2B Buckeye. It's got twin engines, weighs about 15,000 pounds at takeoff. It's a really easy airplane to fly, very nice flying airplane with very good performance for a trainer.
The T-2 served the Navy from 1959 through to 2008, and for more than 30 years was the Navy's primary jet trainer, a role now covered by the much faster T-45 Goshawk. Typically, the Legacy Flight will see one civilian aircraft flying with the FA-18 as an addition to the F-18's TAC demo performance. Former Navy aircraft from all eras have been part of the Legacy Flight program, from F-4U Corsairs to Wildcats, Bearcats, T-28s, FJ-4 Furies, A-4 Skyhawks, and more. With the T-2 leaving naval service only a few years ago, it's one of the most recent additions to the Legacy program. On rare occasions, such as AirVenture at Oshkosh, more than one civilian aircraft may take part in the Legacy Flight.
So we're going to be flying a special demonstration with 3 other vintage warbirds, all 3 jets, with the F-18.
Paul Wood is the founder of the Warbird Heritage Foundation, the caretakers of many of the aircraft that participate in the Legacy Flight.
I'll be flying the lead position in the A4. It is a Vietnam-era carrier-based ground attack fighter, and it's one of 2 single-seat A4s flying in the United States today in civilian hands. We have an FJ Fury, which is a Korean War-era jet fighter that the Navy used on the left wing. The F-18 Hornet, which is the modern generation fighter, will be on the right wing. And we have a T-2 Buckeye, which is also one of, I think, 2 flying in civilian hands in the country right now. That was a Navy trainer, carrier qualification trainer, for many, many years, from the 60s through the early 2000s.
The A-4 was the Navy's preeminent ground attack aircraft during the Vietnam War and was flown by the U.S. Navy Blue Angels from the mid-70s to the mid-80s. A-4s were among the first aircraft to drop ordnance on the North Vietnamese, and an A-4E was the aircraft Senator John McCain was flying when he was shot down and taken prisoner. The aircraft was exported to a number of countries, saw service in the Yom Kippur and Falkland Wars, and is still flown from a carrier by the Brazilian Navy. Paul Wood's A-4 is painted to represent the aircraft flown by Lieutenant Commander T.R. Swartz, who scored the only air-to-air kill with a Skyhawk during the Vietnam War.
There are a lot of pilots out there that flew A-4s in Vietnam, but they're all older than I am right now, and I've been fortunate enough to learn how to fly it, and I'm enjoying every minute of it.
For the demonstration, the Legacy aircraft typically will launch first and go into a hold near the airfield, while the F-18 conducts the TAC demo.
Legacy 2 check here.
While we were filming, the FJ-4 Fury, which was supposed to be a part of the flight, experienced mechanical difficulties and had to land.
Yeah, Legacy 2's got an issue here. His gear didn't retract. Roger that.
This unfortunately can happen when you're dealing with 50-year-old military warbirds.
Once the F-18 is finished, he'll come over and rejoin with the other aircraft, and we'll do a series of 3 passes. The one that's unique to these type of aircraft is the hook down pass. So one of the passes we'll do is with a hook down, which is naval aircraft have hooks so that you can land on the carrier. After that, then we'll come over and break apart. And then there's a little surprise at the end. As we land, the F-18 will get as close as he can to supersonic and try and sneak up on the crowd right behind us.
Now, not just any old warbird pilot gets to fly their aircraft a few feet away from a Navy jet. The Legacy pilots are specially selected and have to undergo a qualification process each year.
The Legacy flight program is a pretty elite group. There are about 18 civilian pilots that have been selected from around the country to fly with the Navy. And we have to go out to California once a year and practice with the Navy out there for this routine. All the civilians get together and we get to meet the Hornet pilots from both coasts, and we practice the routine together. And then we go around to air shows around the country and perform for them and demonstrate the F-18 and the Navy Legacy long line of very great fighters that the Navy have flown for many years.
Ready, break.
It's a dream come true for me to be able to fly any airplane, let alone fly with some phenomenal other pilots and fly with some really great modern Navy pilots as well.
Hi, I'm Rob Ryder. Many airplanes have 6 round flight instruments in front of the pilot, affectionately known as the 6-pack. In the top row, you'll find the airspeed indicator, the attitude indicator, and the altimeter. The bottom row holds the turn coordinator, heading indicator, and the vertical speed indicator. The pilot can use these 6 instruments to keep the airplane flying upright and as desired, even without seeing the ground.
For more than 70 years, pilots all around the world have been relying on the accuracy of an instrument landing system to safely guide them to the runway in good weather conditions and bad. The reliability of the ILS system is no accident. Today, we're going to go flying with NAV Canada in their flight inspection aircraft and see how they measure the accuracy of an ILS.
NAV Canada is responsible for more than 100 ILS installations at airports all across the country, as well as hundreds of VORs, DMEs, and other navigational aids. Since all of the nav aids operate by transmitting radio waves into the air, the only way to reliably test their accuracy is with an airplane. To do this, pilots such as Anthony McKay fly specially modified aircraft in a scientific fashion along and around these radio waves. Testing a runway's ILS usually means operating at an active airport, with commercial jets landing on adjacent or sometimes even the same runway.
The biggest challenge that we have during ILS inspection, well, right off the bat, is coordination with air traffic. Because when we show up to do an ILS inspection, we're an awful lot like the construction crew on the highway. So we do slow traffic down. So the biggest challenge is the coordination of our required movements to fit in with the other traffic. Essentially, we work with the tower and the terminal control unit, and we operate within a piece of airspace that's 10 miles long, 2 miles wide, and capped at 2,100 feet. So if we can operate within that airspace and not cross across the entire airport, the rest of the airport can still function properly. And the impact to eventually the traveling public is lessened.
Keeping the aircraft inside that small pocket of airspace means that Anthony has to fly the CRJ-200 in a way that most commercial aircraft would only accept in extreme circumstances.
Typically, we come into an airport and we operate at 200 knots. We operate with the gear up, and our maximum bank angle limit that we use is 45 degrees of bank. With that speed, then we have overbank protection for stalls in the turns. We also use flap 8 on all the approaches, and that just gives us a little more buffer, a little more protection against the stall margin.
Flying in this manner is certainly no small feat, but when it comes to actually testing the ILS and other nav aids, the flight inspection pilots are essentially taxi drivers. It's up to technical flight inspectors such as Eric Garneau and their kit of highly calibrated instruments to determine the accuracy of the radio beams being emitted.
So my job as a technical flight inspector is to make sure that the ILS is performing to the standard of NAV Canada, and so I make sure that what's on the plate there, what's published, reflects what I'm seeing in the air. So I make sure that the coverage is good, the guidance is good, and I check pretty much all the parameters of the instrument landing system.
The instrument landing system uses two radio waves, one known as a localizer and the other known as a glide path, to give a pilot guidance to the runway. By using these radio waves for guidance, pilots can fly a precise path to a point above the runway, regardless of whether or not they can see the runway out the window.
So each ILS consists of a localizer, which tells you where the center line of the runway is. The second part is the glide path, and that brings the aircraft down on a nice 3-degree approach to the runway, which equates to a descent of between 500 feet per minute and 800 feet per minute. And that'll lead an airplane to that nice soft touchdown that everybody's hoping for.
Not all instrument landing systems are created equal. There are 3 different categories of ILS, with Category 1 being the least accurate and Category 3 being the most accurate.
On a Category 3, the airplane is allowed to come down to within 50 feet of the runway, and at 50 feet, the pilots either have to see the runway to land or they conduct a missed approach. At the speeds that typical airliners operate at and at those descent rates, at 50 feet above the runway, the aircraft is about 3 seconds from touchdown. So it's a pretty fast decision for the airline pilots to make.
With the responsibility of guiding the aircraft that close to the runway, it's easy to see why testing is crucial. To do the testing on the ILS, the flight inspection aircraft makes 12 to 20 runs down or across the localizer and glide path.
Well, right off the bat, we're not actually flying the ILS. What we do is we come into an airport like we did here in Toronto today, and we set up the differential GPS system.
The differential GPS on the ground is placed at an exact spot at the airport that has been surveyed ahead of time.
And then it calculates a position. And from that calculated position, it says, okay, so the GPS satellites are telling me that I'm here, but because of this precise survey from before, I actually know I'm 2 feet left of that.
By transmitting this information to the computer in the aircraft and then combining this with the aircraft GPS, the flight inspection computer can calculate the aircraft's position down to 1 centimeter, or roughly half an inch. This allows Eric to generate a 100% geometrically accurate path, which is displayed on Anthony's primary flight display and the heads-up display. As Anthony flies his runs down the path generated by the GPS, Eric compares the aircraft's position to the ILS signal that's being received.
What I'm doing, I'm recording the raw ILS data, and also at the same time the computer is recording the GPS position, so it's looking at both of them. So if you're right on center line, you would know because the GPS correction will tell you that you're there, and then you're looking at the raw signal, and together it gives you an average of the ILS. So the GPS is there to it's funny to say, but it acts like a reference point for the ILS.
The 12 to 20 runs that the flight inspection aircraft flies when testing an ILS are designed to test all parameters of the ILS system, with each run testing the signal in a different way.
So the very first thing we do when we fly an ILS is we do fly the center lines. That becomes our baseline. That's where we're going to measure everything else from. Once we've established that the center line of the localizer and the glide path are accurate, then we move out to the edges.
After doing the full-length alignment run, Anthony flies a series of runs where the aircraft will fly the glide slope just to the threshold and then bank out 45 degrees. These runs test portions of the signal such as the upper and lower limits of the glide path or the left and right limits of the localizer.
We're checking the edges to make sure that a pilot will get the proper indications that if a pilot is off, it will display that to him properly.
As the CRJ goes through these testing runs, Eric carefully monitors the radio signal for anomalies that may indicate an issue with the ILS transmitters.
One of the anomalies that can happen is, and it happened many times in the inspection that we just did, is an excursion from the aircraft. So we see that by a spike, so to confirm it, I just ask the pilot.
Is there an aircraft in front of the low?
I don't see one, but there was the truck was going to be right on the runway too, right?
That will be one of the anomalies, but we know that it's normal. And the average normally it's within tolerance anyway, but if we have any doubt, we redo it. The other anomaly that I would say, the glide path sometime with ice or snow can shift a little bit, so I'm looking for a shift. I'm also looking for power, for coverage. If the powers drop, maybe there's something going on with the system, so I talk with the ground tech and we try to find out what the problem could be.
Now, the testing regime that the flight inspection team goes through can be fairly repetitive. Testing one runway's ILS can take around an hour to an hour and a half. With a combination of the speed, the bank angle required, and the fact that accuracy comes before comfort, sitting in the back can be rather unpleasant.
On a bumpy day, sitting back here, it's not easy. but you know, with time you get used to it. I guess that with time you get better at like motion sickness, but someday I would say the ride is better than when you're driving your car.
Sitting in the front, things can go a lot better. For a former airline pilot such as Anthony, the opportunity to fly as a flight inspection pilot can be a lot of fun.
It is real flying. You know, everything is hand flown. We only use the autopilot on the outbound legs to take a little break. But for the types of maneuvers we do, the autopilot can't keep up with what we need to do. So it's hands back on the stick, real flying again. And you know, some days that's really great, and other days, if you're fighting weather and things, it's just like any other job. It can be a little more difficult, but it's a great career here, that's for sure.
Seasons 1 to 4 of The Aviators are now available on DVD and Blu-ray. For more information on today's segments, visit www.theaviators.tv. From our official home at the Whitman Regional Airport in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, we'll see you next week on The Aviators.